thank you very much for inviting me to talk today. I'm going to talk about, so it says data and growth, but kind of insights and innovation. I guess it's really the same thing. I'm going to share stories from Zambesi, Hey You, and another company that I started that never got off the ground, and kind of the strategic errors that we made, and I guess what we learned, the kind of insights that came from those errors that drove growth. So first, I'll just kick off by sharing my background. I actually started in music, so I've been in business since university. I started managing my favourite little band who were kind of playing at the university. They were called George, so they were very unheard of at the time. We had a lot of success. Now Katie Noonan was the front person of that group. And then I built my own music management company. So I managed 11 artists over 8 years, and we launched Matt Corby and Evermore and Lisa Mitchell and a bunch of others, which was a super exciting business kind of in my 20s. In 2011, I decided to get into tech, and I came up with an idea for it was called Posse.com originally. It went through a bunch of different iterations, and in 2014 we merged with a company called Beat the Queue, and we formed a new business called Hey You. So Hey You, hopefully some of you use it to order coffee, or even hopefully now to order lunch, and recently they launched catering, so to order catering for your office. We do about 25,000 transactions now every day. We're used by more than 500,000 Australians, and we raised $17 million in venture capital. A year and a half ago, leading to Zambesi, 3 years ago I had my first child, and I knew at that point that I wanted to do something. I wanted to launch something different. So I spent a kind of year in the process of thinking about what to do, and a year and a half ago I launched Zambesi.com. So Zambesi came from working and running Hey You, being like, I was trying to get training for my team members. I really wanted my marketing people, my growth people to learn digital marketing and growth from the best. I wanted my team members to get presentation skills. I wanted my head of engineering to get better leadership skills and leading engineers. And I found there's nothing that I found through kind of traditional training institutions that would have given us the kind of edge that we needed as a fast-growing company. And so the idea from Zambesi is to create a platform, really a marketplace, where people who are kind of pioneers and leaders at companies like Canva and Atlassian and Google and Showpo can create and lead their own initially face-to-face courses. So we now have, I think, 47 one-day workshops that have been created by, you can learn public speaking with the founder of TEDx Sydney. You can learn growth with the guy who led growth at Canva, now leads growth at Airtasker. You can learn capital raising with me. So there's a bunch of courses. So hopefully you'll check it out. But what I want to talk about today is really insights. So strategic errors, as I mentioned before, that we made, and how the insights that came from those mistakes led to growth and the development of both companies. So there's 3 stages of business that I want to talk about, and there's one story from each. So first is the kind of inception stage, or I guess the very early innovation stage for developing and launching a new product. The second is kind of early traction, and the third is growth. So I also wanted to, before I go into the stories, is just to give you a sense of the kind of what it's actually like to be inside a startup when you're making these strategic decisions, and that you're operating under conditions of kind of extreme uncertainty and a high amount of stress. So I've plotted here my 7 or 8 years of being a startup founder and the emotional journey. So on the y-axis is kind of my happiness, and the x-axis is the time. So you can see that when you look at the bios of people at things like this, you think, oh, they were created like these 2 companies. They've done well. Like, it seems like it might be a straight line, but it's anything but. Like, there's 2 points in there that we ran out of money. We had to lay off staff members. We thought that the business wasn't going to work. I fell out with a co-founder. This is incredibly so to make you make a lot of mistakes under these kind of conditions, but you have to move super fast because under pressure you have a very limited amount of kind of time, money, and I think energy and enthusiasm of your team. So that's the conditions that you're operating under. First up, I mentioned 3 stories, and one would come from a business that never made it. This is the story from the business that never made it. This is about the business model inception stage. So, how do you work out whether or not your business's model is going to work? With Posse, it merged into what became Hey You. We had several iterations before that, and I worked out in hindsight I could have saved a whole lot of time and money had I done more work at the beginning to figure out whether or not the idea was going to work. So leaving Hey You in 2017 or so, I actually had a different idea for it. It wasn't Zambesi. My idea, I wanted to do something in the space of the future of work, and that there was going to be a growing problem of people needing support in the career decisions they were making to survive and thrive in the kind of changing workforce. So that was the space that I wanted to build a company in. My original idea was to tackle career advice for students, because I had so many friends who had kids in year 12 or at university who were kind of complaining about this woeful career advice that they were getting from the career advisors. And so I had this idea, which was, I could create a platform where students could go, and rather than going to some crusty, librarian / career advisor, they could actually connect with someone who was working, in like an interesting company, who was early in their career, and get advice about, how do they get there, what courses did they take, what's it like to do this. And it sounded like a really cool idea, and I ran it past a couple of, particularly one of the big funds who actually wanted to invest, and a bunch of friends as well. Everyone was telling me this was a great idea. So I thought, well, just hang on, before I go and make the same mistake as I'd made with Posse, I will actually do some user interviews before I even build a product. So I actually went, this is a picture that I took. I taught a class at International Grammar, so I could really get to start to understand year 12 students. And I went and stood at Macquarie University and at UTS, and I spent 2 days at each place talking to students in the coffee line. And what I would ask them I figured out the best kind of line of questioning was, I'd say, hey, I'm here today doing some research about the career advice here at Macquarie University. Not kind of on behalf of them, so technically not untrue, just say about the career advice. And so my first question was, have you been to see the career advisor here? And I could tell you that in 4 days of interviewing, university students, one after the other, I probably found 3 people that had actually even been to the career advisor. So then I asked them, what were they doing about career advice? They would all say, oh, yeah, I need to get onto that. But it was quite obvious from talking to people that even though there probably is a problem and their parents think they have a problem, they weren't desperate to solve that problem. If they had all said, yes, I've been to the career advisor and my experience is terrible and now I'm doing all these things to try and get great career advice, and they were really stuck, then I could solve that problem. But the fact that they didn't actually care that much and they hadn't even tried to use the career advisor meant it was kind of obvious that no matter how good a product that I built to kind of solve that problem, there was going to be a motivation issue and they probably wouldn't use it. So I was kind of back to square one. I had whilst I was kind of working out what to do, I had been running these workshops on the side of how to raise capital. And then there was a bunch of friends who were working at different companies who also wanted to teach workshop. And that was where the idea for Zambesi came from. I'm going to talk about early stage traction next, and the mistakes that I made launching this business, and the insights that came from those mistakes in the kind of the early days of growth. So with this Zambesi platform, the way I started it was I first convinced a bunch of people who I knew or who were in my network anyway to create courses. So people from Canva, Showpo, Atlassian, great people. And I built a WordPress product myself, and then I held an event to talk about that you could now do workshops with these people, and actually you could buy tickets at the event, and just to see what traction I got. And it was amazing. So we sold, I think, more than 40 tickets or so, $500 each on the night. And then I went out and did some Facebook advertising, some LinkedIn campaigns. My idea was to kind of raise awareness of this brand and what we were doing. And this is what happened. So the first few months were amazing. And I thought, I'm really onto something here. And then what happened was probably that January was just a dip because we didn't do anything. but we started to trough. And I think like a lot of startups go through this, it turned out that what was happening was there's actually quite a lot of people who are interested in new products and will try things, and there's kind of a surge of enthusiasm for something when it first comes out. But what happened was we had the surge of enthusiasm, and as that died down, we started to see really what the business would do. And it was the kind of many months of, I guess you call it the trough of sorrow, where we kind of had dipped and we weren't growing at all. And I was trying to figure out, what was happening. I was doing exactly the same things, lots of events, lots of brand awareness, Facebook advertising. And then it wasn't until I actually kind of went to one of my own courses and got some insights into. I went to the Koala marketing course. So Koala done an incredible job of launching. They're $100 million in 3 years of revenue. So through kind of the course is called Ruthless Performance Marketing. And what I saw that I did wrong, was I had started at the wrong end of the funnel. So I'd started by getting brand awareness. And what I really needed to do was to start at the bottom, not even in the. So this is the marketing funnel of the different stages of marketing. So brand awareness is the top of the funnel. Then you might prospect customers that could be interested. Then there's a phase where they might be considering your product. Then there's a phase where you can see that they're intending to purchase your product. So we actually should have started at the very bottom, even after intent, with people who had already purchased the product. So we pulled all of our advertising and put all of our efforts into the whole customer experience. So when you attended a workshop, we spent a lot of effort in training our trainers. The post-workshop experience, we started to see people enrolling in more workshops and enrolling their teams in more workshops and referring more people. So we probably spent 2 or 3 months entirely on the kind of customer experience, post-purchase marketing. Then we started to move up to kind of intent, and then looking at people who had engaged with a certain amount of content on our website. They'd been on our website for a certain amount of time and figuring out how to remarket to them. So we spent a bit of money building like remarketing funnels. Once they were really humming, then we moved into some search engine marketing, looking for people who were Googling for the kind of things that we were offering. So if that makes sense, the idea is that instead of starting with brand awareness, that is really the last thing that you do. Whereas most companies, and certainly I thought that should be the first thing that I did. And with Koala, for example, they spent the first full year of the existence of that business without doing any brand awareness marketing, purely focusing on the customer experience, the post-purchase experience, and finding people who had shown an intent to purchase a product like this. And then we started to grow. So I think that's the kind of growth mark. So you can see over the past few months, we've really started to nail that kind of post-purchase, the intent phase. We're actually now starting to really see some growth. Last up, a story of insights to drive growth from Hey You. So this is just like, this is our kind of, there's 2 graphs that I wanted to show here. The graph on the left-hand side is the number of cafes that we were signing up every month. So this is very early in the business. We had 1.5 salespeople. So it was, a very small sales team. So we were signing up pretty much around 20 cafes a month steadily. And then the other side is the growth in the number of transactions per day. So there was actually a long time, for those of you who followed the business, like kind of 2014, 13, actually didn't grow much at all. It was very stagnant. It wasn't until kind of 2015 that it actually started to take off. And so we had spent as a team, a lot of time kind of putting our heads together, trying to figure out what's the secret to getting this thing to grow. And we knew that we needed to get more cafes. So we couldn't grow by customers because you need the cafes first, and then you can get the customers to use the product at the cafes. So we needed to figure out how to get more cafes on board, and importantly, how to get more cafes to stick. So the mistake that we made was that we thought we should send out a survey. We find out what these cafes want. And so we sent out a survey to 900 cafes who had at some point in time shown an interest in Hey You. So either they had signed up and then dropped off, or they were using the product, or they had just never, they started signing up and never got quite through the process. And we asked them what they wanted, what would they want to make Hey You amazing? So and we had a list of kind of ideas, and then they could also suggest ideas. And so the feedback that came back was, number one, they wanted to be able to update their menu themselves, as opposed to like having to go through our support system. Number 2 was they wanted to be able to do special offers themselves, like have like a happy hour time. Number 3 was they wanted to have multiple people to be able to log in from their same account. Number 4, I think, was like analytics. So we were like, okay, this is our customer roadmap based on what our customers are telling us. And as we started to build and roll out these features, it made zero difference to our growth. And then we had this discussion, like someone in the office brought in like an article. We had this like weekly articles that we would read as a team. And someone, it was their turn, and they had this article on survival bias theory. And we had this big team discussion about it. So survival bias theory, if you haven't heard about it, which we hadn't at the time, is from World War II. The American Air Force was trying to figure out how to stop planes from getting shot down. So there was a whole lot of planes going out, then getting shot at, and they were losing planes. So what they did was they looked at planes that made it back to the base and looked at where the planes were getting shot. And they found the planes were getting shot in the wing. So they thought, okay, if we plate up the wings of the plane, then we're not going to lose less planes. So they plated up the wings of the plane, and they realised that after they did that, it made zero difference to the number of planes that were surviving. And then, I'm going to scratch their heads probably, a statistician come and looked at this problem and realised that they had been looking at the wrong planes, and that they had this kind of survival bias theory. By looking at the planes that made it back, that had bullet holes in them, they were the ones that could be hit and still survive, as opposed to that, what they had to do was go out and find the planes that never made it back and figure out where they had been shot, which turned out it was in the engine. Then when they started plating up the engine, then they were able to save the planes. So the point is that we had been asking the wrong customers. Like when you send out a survey, the people who are going to respond, or the cafes that respond, are people that are already, cafes that already love our product. Like they're the ones that, even though there's glitches and things in it, they're already using it. So we needed to go out and find our lost planes. So the point here is like the customers that you care about, we worked out that if you want to grow, was not our power customers who have this kind of disproportionate voice in feedback. We needed to go out and actually sit with cafes who had churned, or who looked like they were about to churn, and observe what was happening in those cafes. And then we worked out a whole lot of different things. Like one was, the barista wasn't engaged. So the cafe owner had bought the product, but the barista who was actually using the product, it was just this annoying thing that was beeping, and they just would turn it off. The customers couldn't use it. The cafe owner eventually thought that it wasn't going to work. There was a whole lot of things that we discovered through actually going out and finding, and talking to either cafes that never made it through, or cafes that had dropped off. And it wasn't until we started addressing those problems that, then we started to see this growth, and the company kind of really went through a massive growth period straight after fixing the kind of churn issues and closing the kind of activation and the retention issues. So I guess they're my 3 stories in different ways to think about growth and kind of insights that we got through different strategic mistakes. There's just a bit more information on Zambesi. If you'd like to check it out, it's zambesi.com. So we have 47 courses. So you can do marketing leadership with a guy from zero. We have lots of startup courses as well. There's growth hacking. The most exciting thing, though, that I want to share is that in the next couple of weeks, we're launching online courses. So for those of you who have larger teams or can't make it in to spend a whole day, spend a whole day face-to-face with Andre from Canva, but you can now actually do, in a couple of weeks' time, you'll be able to do Andre's growth marketing course online. I think it's like $29 or something. Also, the Koala marketing course. We've got Danny, the founder of Koala, and 3 other key members of his marketing team, and we've filmed them, and they are really high quality. There's quizzes, there's team activities, so you can learn the insights that Koala had behind their growth, how you can apply them to your own business. Same with Canva/Airtasker. So please go up to Zambesi and check it out. We're going to be putting the rest of them online over the next few months. So that's us. If you want to email me, I'm just Rebekah@zambesi.com.